can be complicated. Despite being bound by blood, not all families are able to get along.
This is especially true of siblings. Welcome to Top 10 Nerd. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Amanda. And we're not related, but today we will be looking at some superheroes who are siblings and who hate each other.
Some of these siblings are pairs of heroes, some are hero-villain pairs.
And some are superheroes with totally normal mortal siblings they just don't get along with. We have a lot to get through, so let's dive in. Number 10, Wonder Woman and Wonder Girl. Now normally I would say these two actually really love each other, but today we're talking about rivalries, and there was a time when Diana Prince and Donna Troy actually had some beef. This happened actually before the two young women even really knew about it themselves. You see, in the Prime Earth continuity during the New 52 reboot, Donna was given a new backstory. I know, another new backstory. Well, her backstory initially seemed familiar to readers, with her being a child that Wonder Woman had once saved and brought back to Themyscira to be raised among the Amazons. The truth in this continuity was that Donna was actually created by Darano for the sole purpose of defeating Diana as a way of getting back at Hippolyta, her ex-lover. Darano in the comics has the appearance of an old crone because her youth was stolen away by Hecate's magics, which Darano confronted when defending Hippolyta. If that's not enough of a conflict for you between Wonder Woman and the formerly known Wonder Girl, who was in essence like Diana's adopted kid sister, we've also met Thea in the comics, which is an alternate future version of Donna who rules the world after killing all her friends, Wonder Woman included. Donna confronted this evil future version of herself in the third volume of Titans in issue number 17.
Number 9, Hal Jordan and his brother, Jack. Hal Jordan's father, Martin, was a test pilot for a Ferris aircraft until one day he crashed his plane and died. He left behind a wife named Jessica, as well as his sons Hal and Jack. The event was so traumatic that Jessica made her sons promise not to follow in their father's footsteps. Jack respected his mother's wishes and became Coast City's district attorney. Hal, on the other hand, felt the need for speed. More specifically, the need to break his promise to his mommy and become a test pilot. Jack believed that the stress of this caused their mother to die early, and he never forgave Hal for breaking his promise. Hal would eventually become Green Lantern and would often work alongside Jack while fighting crime, but the two would never really come to terms together, and Jack eventually died in a car crash. Womp womp.
Number 8, the Summers Brothers. While the Summers Brothers have stood together in the past, they've also been quite divided as well. For this point, we're focusing on Scott, Alex, and Gabriel, aka Cyclops, Havoc, and Vulcan. With Vulcan, it's pretty easy to discuss the hatred his brothers have felt in the past, because when you think about it, Vulcan kind of came back to attack the X-Men and get revenge for what had happened to him and his team in the past when they attempted to rescue the first X-Men team. However, that being said, while initially Scott and Gabriel were not on friendly terms, when Scott learned the truth of who Vulcan really was to him, a brother, and that Vulcan had, unbeknownst to Scott, had been part of the team that attempted to rescue him and the other X-Men from dread sentient mutant island known as Krakoa, Scott ended up more wanting to reach out to Vulcan as opposed to fighting against him. Havoc and Psyche also have their differences. At one point, Cyclops left his wife Madeline Pryor, prompting Havoc to step in and be there for Maddie, ultimately developing his own romantic relationship with his brother's wife, so that's kinda complicated. With years of comic history between them and powers all based in a similar mutant power set, it's easy to see how sometimes the Summers Brothers all struggle to get along with one another.
Number 7, Northstar and Aurora. Jean-Marie and Jean-Paul Barbier were separated early in life when their parents died in a car accident. Jean-Paul ended up in foster homes before eventually becoming an Olympic skier, while Jean-Marie ended up at a strict Catholic girls' boarding school, which was so traumatic that she ended up developing dissociative identity disorder, creating an alternate personality known as Aurora. They have a pretty rocky relationship with Northstar, often coming into conflict with his sister's different personalities. So he's not fond of her Jean-Marie personality, who is ashamed of her mutant powers and due to her religious upbringing is unaccepting of her brother being a gay man. On the other hand, her much freer Aurora personality doesn't like Northstar because he commented on her relationship with Walter Lankowski and implied that she was a loose woman. The result of this was that one of her personas refused to talk to him, but the other was constantly needing support but being unaccepting of his lifestyle. They eventually buried the hatchet, but there was a huge chunk of their lives where they were constantly at odds.
Number 6. Jimmy Hudson and Quicksilver. This might seem like a weird thing to have on here since most people only know Quicksilver and his sister, Scarlet Witch, and maybe their other half-sister Polaris. But did you know that Quicksilver has a brother too? In the ultimate reality, that is. Here, Jimmy Hudson is the son of Wolverine and Magneto's wife, Magda Lencher. Magda and Wolverine get together and Jimmy is born as a result. Quicksilver, on the other hand, is believed to be the son of Magneto and Magda, although it's also kind of implied that he might even be Wolverine's son, but that's a matter for another video. While Quicksilver had fought to protect Jimmy's life on a few occasions, this wouldn't stop the two from fighting one another viciously when Jimmy refused to go along with Quicksilver's master plan, and Jimmy's part in it. Magda, however, arrives to prevent her two sons from killing each other just in time.
Number 5. Barry Allen and Cobalt Blue. Barry Allen was an ordinary man until he was struck by lightning and doused with chemicals that granted him super speed, allowing him to become the Flash. But he is actually not an only child. On the night that Barry was born, his mother Nora gave birth to another little boy. At the same time, another woman named Charlene Thawne was also in labor. The attending physician was drunk and had sent his nurse home for the night and was unable to save Thawne's child when he got tangled in the umbilical cord. The doctor's solution to this was to take Barry's twin from the Allens and tell them that he had been stillborn. He gave Malcolm to the Thawne family, who raised him as one of their own. Malcolm's adoptive family was kinda sketchy, as they had a power called the Blue Flame, which they used to heal people before selling them fake cures as a con. As he was adopted, he did not have this power, something for which his other family members constantly taunted him about. Malcolm found out that he was adoptive and set off to find his real family. He began stalking Barry, even witnessing the accident that turned him into the Flash. He became jealous that Barry had everything Malcolm thought that he deserved and grew to hate Barry. He learned a way to use the Thawne Blue Flame power despite being adopted and became one of the Flash's villains, Cobalt Blue.
Number 4. Professor Xavier and Juggernaut. Professor Xavier, while having done some not so great things in his life, is still, for all intents and purposes, mainly considered a superhero. And honestly, while we'll be focusing more on the time here when Juggernaut was a supervillain, even he in the comics seems to have turned over somewhat of a new leaf, moving more into being an anti-hero, if not like a full-on superhero himself, I would say. Juggernaut was given his powers initially by Sidorak, and while he has moved away from this god in the present day in terms of acting as his avatar, Juggernaut was at one point acting as such, with his powers intrinsically tied to Sidorak. Because of his alignment and because of years of history between the two, Professor X and Juggernaut would always butt heads whenever they met up, often even fighting against each other. If not always directly, many times indirectly at the very least. Even when Juggernaut became more of a heroic figure, Xavier was still wary of letting him on the mutant island of Krakoa, because despite being family, albeit step-family, Xavier still didn't want Kane around, and he used the excuse that he wasn't a mutant. Harsh. Fortunately, the two have continuously over the years been moving towards a healthier and healthier relationship, so here's hoping that continues to grow between them and they don't hate each other so much anymore.
Number 3. Martian Manhunter and Malefic. Alien space cop John Jones was born on the planet Mars, where he lived with his wife and daughter. Like all Martians, John had the power to psychically communicate with other members of his species, but his twin brother Malefic was born a mutant who didn't possess this ability. As the years passed, Malefic became more and more resentful and hateful of Martian culture and started devising a plan to end the race. John's idyllic life came to an end when Malefic created a virus that made the Martians burst into flame when they used their psychic powers, resulting in the death of everyone on the planet except John and Malefic. When a scientist on Earth attempted to make contact with Mars with the use of a transmitter, it instead transported John to Earth, where he became the superhero Martian Manhunter. Malefic remained on Mars, living in the ruins, until he learned that his brother was alive on Earth, causing him to set out to try and finish his extinction of the Martian species. Malefic hates John because he hates all Martians. John hates Malefic because he killed everyone John ever knew and loved. Fair enough.
Number 2. Aquaman and Ocean Master. No matter what the continuity, these two have always been brothers in the comics, and they have also always hated one another. Back in the day, the feud between the two happened because Orin, aka Arthur, got everything as a result of his birth, whereas Orm got nothing, Orm being Ocean Master. Because of this, Orm would end up seeking out powers based in magic so that he could finally triumph over his brother. Ha! Take that, Aquaman, I got magic powers. That's me being Ocean Master. In the current continuity, Ocean Master felt that Arthur would not be a good king for Atlantis and sought to prevent him from taking the throne. Arthur here is the firstborn to the princess and future queen Atlanta. Here he was raised on land, whereas Orm, his half-brother, is the son of Orvax Marius, king of Atlantis and queen Atlanta. And of course being raised, underwater, so he's more about that life. Being more of Atlantis initially than Arthur was, it would make sense that Ocean Master would hate Arthur, who spent most of his life initially living on the surface world.
Number 1. Thor and Loki. Okay, you all know the gist of this one. Loki was born to the king and queen of the giants of Jotunheim, but due to him not being a giant, he was shamed by his society. Loki used some really elaborate time travel shenanigans in order to orchestrate the death of his father and his adoption by Odin of Asgard. He was taken to Asgard, but soon became jealous of his new brother, Thor, who was clearly favored over him by the citizens of Asgard. This got to a new level when he became jealous of Thor's relationship with Lady Sif. Loki spent several years trying to defeat Thor, either directly or through more convoluted means, like granting a prisoner absorption powers so he could become the absorbing man to fight Thor. The two have had moments of getting along over the years, but more often than not, these brothers find themselves in spectacular combat, with Loki continuously attacking Earth simply because he knows Thor has a soft spot for it.
Any other heroes with rough sibling relationships?
Let us know in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more Top 10 Nerd.
Stay nerdy, and we'll see you next time.